And welcome to Playbook Radio. My name is Martin Williams. Don't forget to subscribe to the podcast, and we do so on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and YouTube. All the links to the podcast can be found at gameplanplaybook.com. That's gameplanplaybook.com. So today what I wanted to talk to you about is what I call the Five Guys rule, right? So for those of you that live in the United States, because I had noticed that there are people outside of the country that listen to me, which is pretty cool. If you live within the United States, you know about Five Guys. Five Guys is mostly in most places these days, right? And I used to love Five Guys. I used to love going there. I was a huge fan for a long time, and inflation's kind of taken the pricing a little bit out of this world. So nothing against them. They got to do what they got to do, but I've chosen to not really go as often as I used to. And also I've been watching what I eat a little more. So those two things have brought down the amount of Five Guys trips that I make as opposed to when they first came out, but they still have good food. So, I do recommend them. Anyway, why I'm using them as an example when it comes to business building and the mindset of business building is that I think a lot of people make business building a lot more complicated than they need to. And I think they try to jump on so many different trends and so many different, things instead of just saying, you know what, I'm going to do ABC and that's it. Five Guys, for those of you that have never been, has a very simple menu. Okay. Five Guys has probably, maybe like five things that they do. Okay. It's hamburgers, it's hot dogs, it's fries, and they have like a veggie, like a veggie option. And it's basically the burgers without the burger, right? And then, drinks and then like milkshakes, right? So that's all Five Guys does. They don't have, chicken sandwiches. They don't have, chicken nuggets. They don't have McRib. They don't have any of that stuff, right? They have burgers, hot dogs, fries, drinks, and milkshakes. I guess milkshake is a drink, but that's all they got. And they're not trying to be anything more than what they are, right? And it works. Whenever I go to a Five Guys, there's plenty of people there. So I think, especially when you're getting started, I think too many people try to be Walmart instead of trying to be like Five Guys. And there's a lot to be said for having the mindset of, you know what, let me stay in my lane. I've never regretted staying in my lane, right? If I've had regrets, it's because I got away from, what I was good at. Now, does that mean you can't grow and become something, become good at something and add proficiencies and things like that? Of course not. We can all grow and we can all get better. But again, if you're starting out and you have a limited amount of time, a limited amount of money, or a limited amount of both, you want to keep things simple, right? You want to keep things simple because simplicity creates predictability, and predictability creates confidence. And when you're new and people don't know who you are, and you're trying to win people's trust, you're trying to get to know people and people are trying to get to know you, confidence is a huge factor, is a huge variable. And so when you're starting out, you might have 50 ideas, known as a generator. My wife is a therapist and she reads all these books. And, one of the books that she read had to do with, I guess, knowing what type of personality you are as it relates to business. And, it turns out I'm a generator, right? And I don't know the book. I don't remember the book. She said, but you're a generator. I said, okay, sounds about right. And I am that. I am someone who generates ideas and can generate a lot of ideas in a short period of time. And that serves you in a lot of ways. That serves you in business. It serves you when you have to, increase the level of creativity. You have to be able to generate large amounts of ideas and generate them at in a relatively short period of time, because, market changes, market dynamics can change. There's so many different things that can change. And it doesn't mean that it doesn't mean that just because you have a lot of ideas, it doesn't mean that you're scattered or unable to focus, but it becomes that when you try to execute on all those ideas at once, right? When you're starting out, understand that, if you're, one of the things I do is a 5-year plan, right? So if you're in year 1 of the 5-year plan, you're not trying to do year 5 in year 1. Okay. Like, you're not trying to do that. Okay. Year 1 is all about getting on your feet and getting things moving, getting things off the ground, getting into, like a cruising altitude when it comes to your business. That's what year 1 is for. Year 1 is for you to make the transition from being an employee to being an entrepreneur, even if it means that you're still employed by your company. You may still be employed by your company, but you're mentally making the transition to being an entrepreneur and mentally making the transition to being the one that creates the paycheck, as opposed to being the one that waits on a paycheck. Does that make sense? So if you're doing all that and you're making all these mindset shifts, you don't need to be trying to launch 20 products at one time. Right. And I'm laughing because that was me for the longest time. I was trying to be the one that was launching a million things. And guess how many things that I actually launched? It's probably one, right? Because I was trying to do too many things at one time. You got to think more like Five Guys than Walmart. And even Walmart, even Sam Walton didn't start where he is now, or where his company is now. He's passed on, but his company is far beyond where it was when he started as, a general store in Arkansas. It began small, right? But it was simple, and it was something that he could manage. Okay. It's easy to manage 1, 2 products as opposed to managing 20. Okay. So if you're launching, go the Five Guys route. My suggestion, right? Now, if you're super organized and you have a structure and you've got, like, you might say, you know what? Forget you. I got this. That's fine. You do you at the end of the day, right? Because you know what works for you. But Five Guys, I'm here to tell you, they got 5 products. And honestly, that's the most you should have until you're 100% full time. Because those 5 products, they can make better and better. It's what people buy over and over, right? People buy burgers over and over. It doesn't matter what is going on in our society right now. There are, people who have gone plant-based, moving into the plant-based world and doing 80-20 plant-based right now. So there are people who are going plant-based. There are people who are going keto, right? There are people who are just leaving fast food alone. They're leaving, eating out alone, right? So you have all these people that are doing this. Younger people tend to be healthier. Younger people are, paying more attention to their diet as a whole than my age group, which is, that's great for them. It means they'll probably live longer, right? So there's all these variables, but people are still buying burgers. People are still buying fries, right? So my thing is pay attention to what people buy over and over and over and over and over again. Okay. Avoid jumping on trends, avoid jumping on things that, are working for some people, but not working for others. Cause it's tempting to jump on a trend. We live in a trend society, right? Where we have social media, we have, the new dance, the new this, the new that. It's easy to jump on trends, but it's much more advantageous for you to look at what is already selling, right? And then enter that market and then do it in your own way, right? To me, the most successful companies are the ones that do what works, but doing it in a way that is unique. Chipotle wasn't the first Mexican food restaurant, but they did it in a way that's unique. They make everything to order, right? So when you come in, your burrito, your bowl doesn't look like everybody else's bowl. There's an individuality to it. You know, Olive Garden wasn't the first Italian restaurant, but they're one of the first ones that offered unlimited breadsticks, unlimited salad, right? I'm not a huge Olive Garden fan, but a lot of people are. Okay. So it works for them. There's something in knowing what you're good at and knowing what works. Okay. You don't need to reinvent the wheel. I think a lot of people try to reinvent the wheel when it comes to their business, especially when you're starting out. And I just made a podcast on the 90-day rule. And I think that if you're going to try to make this work in 90 days, start with something that works for other people, that has worked and has a track record of working, and then do it in your own way. And then do it in put your own spin on it, right? If I were starting an ice cream shop, right, I would look at, Baskin Robbins. I would look at Carvel. I would look at all the ice cream shops that work. And I would also learn from the failures, like Cold Stone. And I love Cold Stone, but it didn't work, right? They had a huge, they tried to make a huge push, but it didn't work, because partly, especially in cold weather cities, Cold Stone people don't really crave ice cream when it's 10 degrees outside, right? So that was something that was a challenge for them. But look at things that work and keep things simple. Stay in your lane when you're starting. When you are full-time and have more time to experiment, at that point, I would experiment with new stuff. But I really wouldn't do a whole lot of experimentation when you're starting out and trying to increase your income to the point where you can leave your job. Stay with what you know. And then at that point, when you're making money and you got some things going good, then start experimenting and trying different things. So this went way longer than I anticipated, but hopefully it helped you, and ultimately everything's about finding your own way, like I think really it's just more about the mindset of simplicity over complexity. And I think if you just stay with that mindset, I think you'll be okay. So thank you so much for listening. My name is Martin Williams, and don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and share, and I'll talk to you soon.